The first reason you shouldn't buy a lab-grown diamond is the fact that mining natural diamonds directly supports some of the most impoverished people on Earth. While a lab can be set up anywhere and is operated by a handful of high-paid scientists, entire villages are employed by the natural diamond mines. While I had read about the impact the industry was having in certain rural communities, it was actually discussions with a former coworker of mine from Botswana, whose parents worked in the diamond mines for over 20 years, that helped me really understand how crucial these mines are. Imagine like the most remote parts of Asia and Africa where it's just dry and desert all around you and there's very little opportunity, very few jobs, and then a mine opens up. It's a big deal. He explained that the diamond mines operate in the most remote areas, which are, because of the isolation, also the poorest, bringing jobs to the people whose other options are basically subsistence farming and starvation. The natural diamond mining industry pays out over $16 billion annually to the local communities in which they operate, and wages at these diamond mines are 66% higher than local wages, giving villagers the opportunity to pay for their children's schooling and build a bright future for themselves and their families. Now, I'm not saying these diamond miners are saints by any stretch of the imagination, but if like my money can either go to, at least some of the money will go to some poor villagers and like make their life a bit better versus like going to some lab, I'll definitely take helping out the villagers. Yeah. Now, while significant strides have been made regarding the financial benefits to the communities where these mines operate, the environmental degradation remains a legitimate concern. However, despite the claims from the lab-grown diamond lobby that claims that lab-grown diamonds are produced in complete harmony with the environment and nature, an independent report by the Total Clarity Initiative actually found that 511 kilograms of CO2 are released for every polished carat of lab-grown diamonds versus only 160 kilograms per polished carat of natural earth mine diamond. This sounds surprising, but when you consider what really goes on to create a lab-grown diamond, you have to import all these raw materials from all over the world. You have several components that go into their equipment and machinery. Those big ovens to actually create the diamonds require specialized rare earth minerals and other components that basically there's no other way of extracting those minerals than destroying the earth. And you have to import all of that to wherever your lab is. So like you're taking all these minerals out of Africa and wherever else, and then bringing them all the way to we're bringing all the components all the way to Norway or the US or wherever your lab is. So that is what really contributes a lot to that CO2. And when you think of a diamond mine, you imagine that huge, giant, gaping pit in the ground. But in reality, what happens is that gaping pit, once the mining, lets up, or when they find a new vein, that hole is filled in. And nature really does return. If you've seen like some of the coal mines in West Virginia, they absolutely destroyed that land the entire time they were operating. But give it like 10, 15, 20 years, nature really does come back. But when you're talking about the type of rare earth mineral extraction that they have to do, and if you've seen like those lithium pits and things like that, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I know that they're definitely, the lab-grown diamond environmental claims aren't as squeaky clean as they claim. So you basically have to bring all of the materials together from all around the world and construct all that equipment, and that's what contributes to the higher levels of CO2. Whereas with a diamond mine, the main transport that you do is you bring the equipment to the mine, then the mine can operate for years and you just bring in equipment when you need it, and then basically it's the end product, the diamonds, that are actually transported, and diamonds aren't really heavy to transport, right? So I'm thinking that's why their CO2 isn't quite as bad. But obviously neither is great for the environment, but both are definitely much better. They're much better than the diamond mining used to be. And you have to realize that 99.8% of diamonds mined today are Kimberley process compliant. Realized it really is a very, very strongly regulated industry. There's media scrutiny on like every single thing, so things have gotten a lot better, but there's still definitely ways to go. But definitely, like if you're buying a Kimberley compliant, they should be able to tell you like where the mine is, and how well the workers are treated, and they should be able to tell you all that stuff whichever diamond dealer you're dealing with. Okay, but yeah, so neither alternative is really that ecologically friendly, but I'll go with the one that actually brings hundreds of thousands of jobs to some of the most impoverished communities. Before we move on to the second reason why I highly, highly, highly recommend you don't buy a lab-grown diamond, and I used to be kind of wishy-washy on this. I was kind of like, okay, if you buy one if you want one, but now I am strongly against anyone buying them, and you'll see why throughout the course of this video. But before we jump into that, I want to debunk a few misconceptions. So there's a long-running myth that De Beers controls 90% of the diamond market, and that is exactly just that, a myth. De Beers is currently only at 23% of market share. It hasn't been the largest producer for years. And while it is true that diamond is not as rare as like a really fine ruby or like tanzanite, there are rarer gemstones. High quality diamonds are still quite rare. And the reason we're able to have such a high demand, such a high supply of diamonds versus other gemstones is because the demand is so high that the mining for diamonds is, I'm pretty sure diamond mining is more extensive than the mining for every other gemstone combined. So that puts into perspective why we still have a sufficient supply, why every jewelry store still has diamonds. They are rare, but we just work really hard at getting them. Fine diamonds are extremely rare, so I'll give an example. Basically, the whole idea that diamond is extremely common is because of industrial grade, heavily included chunks of black and brown, just rock that is made out of the same carbon as diamond and has the same hardness as diamond, so it is diamond, but it's not a diamond gemstone that we would facet ever. Fine quality diamonds with a large size, high clarity, and that are pure colorless or fancy color are exceedingly rare. 500,000 pounds of rock, 250 tons of rock must be moved to extract just one single carat of jewelry quality diamond. The second reason you should absolutely positively never ever ever buy a lab-grown diamond is the fact that you are buying a replica, basically a copy of the real thing. While I will admit it is a very good copy, it is chemically identical, it is a copy nonetheless. And it can be exposed with a $500 identification tool that you can get easily off the internet. Now imagine if you created a machine that could perfectly replicate any painting, down to every single brushstroke, every single mistake, every single little intricacy, every single little bit of damage on the paint itself. It could get everything perfectly. It's like a 3D printer that just perfectly replicates paintings, one to one. You can't tell the difference, right? And you ran that machine. And that machine ran and it recreated an endless supply of absolutely identical Mona Lisas and Starry Nights. Would those replicas ever be as valuable as the paintings, as the original masterpieces? Of course they wouldn't. For a masterwork like the Mona Lisa to come into existence, many, many, many unlikely and uncontrollable things need to happen. Happenstance is the key word here. These things happen without anybody controlling them, right? That's what makes diamonds so beautiful, and I think you'll get my point as I go along. Natural diamonds so beautiful, sorry. Let's look at the Mona Lisa for a second. So specifically, an extremely gifted painter would have to have happened to be alive and painting during the Renaissance and happen to have a subject who happens to display a unique, half joyous, half somber expression that happens to have the world obsessed and intrigued to this very day. Now, that painting was also stolen, which is partially why it's so famous, but even before that, it was a very intriguing piece by art lovers around the world. And just think about how many things had to have happened for that masterwork to exist and for the world to be obsessed about it and for there to be a line at the Louvre every day to see it. Leonardo da Vinci could have been born, a few decades later or a few decades earlier. He may have never been born. So many things have to happen at exactly the right moment for something so unique and original to come into existence. And that's what I'm getting at. You'll see. Each uncommon thing needs to occur for each uncommon happening that needs to occur for something to exist adds to the rarity of that item and thus to our perceived value of said item. In the case of high-quality natural diamonds, carbon deposits must happen to exist at least 100 miles or so below the Earth's surface, and these deposits must happen to be exposed to just the right amount of heat and pressure so that the proper geological processes can take place that transform what is essentially coal into beautiful gemstones. And it must happen that the heat and pressure is not too intense, lest the brilliant colorless treasures end up as brittle and opaque dust and gravel, which is what actually represents 90% of diamonds, is industrial grade unusable diamonds. And that's what people think. That's why people think diamonds are so common, is because there is a lot of industrial grade material out there. But again, you can't set that in a ring. And I think I've already gone over how we extensively mine diamonds way beyond what we do for any other gemstone. But interestingly, the first lab-grown diamond ever also started as a natural diamond. They take a little sliver of a natural diamond, and through the processes, there's two processes that they use: high pressure, high temperature, or CVD, chemical vapor deposition. I can do a video going into detail on the science behind these. I think it's pretty interesting from a purely scientific perspective. Again, I would never recommend lab-grown diamonds for these reasons, but it is a fascinating process. I saw it on How It's Made years ago, and it really is quite amazing. But mostly they make these for industrial applications, making. We'll get into that later. So basically, the lab-grown diamond is a diamond crystal that's grown on the seed of a natural diamond. Much like our painting replicator, lab-grown diamonds are an attempt to mass-produce a rare treasure that is beloved for its beauty and rarity. So you're really trying to make something that is beloved for being beautiful and for being rare. You achieved the beautiful part, but you didn't achieve the rare part. There's lots of things that are beautiful. There's not that many things that are rare and beautiful. While jewelry quality lab-grown diamonds of a decent size are a somewhat new phenomenon, they've been making synthetic aluminum oxide, or corundum, gemstones in labs for decades. And the demand for rubies and sapphires is still as high as ever, and I have not seen prices significantly dropping. If anything, rubies and sapphires are doing as probably even better than diamonds, to be honest. And this really shouldn't surprise anyone who has thought the issue through, with any sort of depth and any sort of objectivity, right? Intrinsic value doesn't come from the unique properties, but from demand and rarity. And the latter can result in the former, right? The actual rarity can contribute to how much the item is demanded, right? And the rarity means there's a low supply, so that will increase prices, like economics 101, right? But in the case of something like a diamond, the fact that it is rare, the fact that it does have a limited supply, drives up the price. Now, diamonds aren't like too rare that you can't have commercial viability. It's not like pretty much every family at least owns some diamonds in the US and Canada and the UK and stuff. But it's something that's pretty treasured, it's pretty valued. And it's partially because of that rarity, right? You can't just go kicking a pebble at your local lake and you'll run across a diamond either. You have to go, miles into the ground to get to those diamonds and move so much rock to get to it, right? But again, so you replicated those unique properties of diamond. You matched the hardness, you matched the look, you matched the colorlessness, you matched almost everything, but you didn't match the rarity, which is the key thing that gives it intrinsic value. Quartz is pretty beautiful too, but it's a few $100s per pound, per kilogram, not for a carat or a fifth of a carat, or it's because it's very common. Okay. One of the last examples before I move on from this topic about rarity and scarcity is a good example of evidence that scarcity brings desirability, and that is looking at the world of numismatics, of coin collecting, right? The difference in value between two, to the untrained eye, seemingly identical coins can be literally tens of millions of dollars, not tens of thousands, tens of millions of dollars, because of the simple fact that there are a lot more of one of those coins than there are of the other, right? While lab-grown diamonds aren't exceedingly common yet, as the technology improves, it'll be possible to mass produce enormous quantities that no amount of mining could ever match, because natural diamonds have a quantity limiter, and that is the enormous number of geological happenstance that has to occur for natural diamonds to exist and be gem quality and be accessible by current mining technology. Lab-grown diamonds do not have those limitations. It's not just me who doesn't see the intrinsic value of lab-grown diamonds. Most people with whom I've spoken see them as more of a novelty and not really a replacement for natural diamonds. According to surveys with men and women between the ages of 25 and 60, 84%, that's an overwhelming majority, would prefer to buy a natural diamond over a lab-grown diamond. I was actually surprised about the next bit. 83% would consider buying fashion jewelry with a lab-grown diamond, and a very shocking to me, 65% would consider buying a lab-grown engagement ring. I think that's very interesting that the keyword there is consider. A lot of people consider a lot of things. They rarely ever do it. And I think, and when you went further on in the survey, the key reason, the number one thing, 62% of them cited in one way or another that cost was the biggest lower price tag. The lower price tag of lab-grown diamonds versus natural diamonds was the thing that was drawing them in. Unfortunately, lab-grown diamonds are not a case where you don't get what you where not only do you not get what you paid for, you get much less than what you paid for. And that seemingly lower price is what leads me into my third, final, and most crucial point about why I am so strongly anti-lab-grown diamonds. These things are terrible investments. Like, they are just throwing your money away. And I'll get into this. So much like the scam and meme cryptocurrencies that have no limits on supply. For example, like Bitcoin, there's a limit of 21 million Bitcoin. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin. But then you have coins like Dogecoin that have an unlimited supply. As soon as somebody feels like memeing, they can just up the supply and there goes your value. Lab-grown diamonds, as long as they can get the raw materials, which aren't anything that difficult to get. Of course, they're environmentally damaging things to get. The carbon footprint of getting them is big, but financially, there's a reason they're so much cheaper, right? And they can get them, right? So as long as they can keep getting that and they see that there's a demand, they will keep producing them. And there's always this omnipresent risk of new technology coming in and just creating an abundance of quantity and just flooding the market and crashing the already free-falling prices. And I'm going to get into those prices because it is shocking. That just isn't possible with natural diamonds because, again, their supply is restricted by Mother Nature. Now, imagine that supply really wasn't restricted. It was just a collusion between De Beers and a couple other, it was an oligopoly of a few diamond producers. Obviously, there are a few big players with a large amount of market share because this is a very expensive industry. There's high barriers of entry into this industry, right? You need mining equipment, which is extremely expensive. You need to be able to deal with very, very difficult geopolitical climates. You need huge team, huge budgets. So there's a high barrier to entry, but there really isn't collusion or oligopoly. And it's very simple because any billionaire would see that there's a huge opportunity. Okay, they're colluding, they're keeping supply artificially low. Okay, I can just undercut them on price and I would capture the whole market, right? They simply can't because diamonds are actually hard to get, right? I explained we mine more than we do for every other gemstone combined, right? And supply just meets demand. We're still like, there's no abundance of diamonds. They're not like discounting diamonds by a lot because pretty much every engagement ring, every like big anniversary, there's usually a diamond involved somewhere there. A natural diamond, keyword there. So again, their supply has no limit. So the prices just can keep falling, right? That's not to say natural diamonds from a jewelry store are a great investment. They're actually a terrible investment. I would never advise you walk into the local jewelry store on your street. Maybe if you know them and they're going to work with you on price and stuff, but usually it's a bad bet because they have to pay rent usually. They've got retail insurance, which is extremely expensive. Crime is through the roof in the US and Canada, so I'm imagining their insurance is reflecting that fact. And then they have to hire staff, they have to pay sales commission. All of that gets factored into the price you're paying, right? So it's often you're paying 300% markup. That's not unheard of in the jewelry industry, sometimes 400% markup. And the quality that you'll get at your local jeweler really isn't what's like required to command a good price on the resale market, on the secondary market. I would advise buy online from a reputable dealer, a reputable website. Always get a Gemological Institute of America report, a GIA report. Always shop around, and always negotiate. It doesn't matter if it's the biggest diamond website on the internet. They will usually give you at least something, maybe $50 off, maybe $100 off. It's something, right? And all of that, goes into the fact that you paid less, right? For something that will actually not go to zero like a lab-grown diamond will, because when you go to resell a lab-grown diamond, people have been getting absolutely nothing. Like they're having a very difficult time selling them. So it just feels like they paid for the marketing, they paid for the fancy store. Like at least with, even if you go to a jewelry store, at least you get something out of the diamond. People are literally like, I can't sell my lab grown diamond. I had to like off it for like $100 on an auction website. So yeah, just a terrible investment. Okay, so if you do, so while there have been bubbles in the natural diamond market as well, there was a time in the 80s where basically the price of a diamond is around $10,000 a carat for a very fine, like we're talking triple excellent, or maybe like hearts and arrows, like near D, near flawless, IF, or like ED, very fine, beautiful, perfect 1 carat diamond is about $10,000. And there was a point in the 80s where it almost hit $60,000. It was a very short amount of time. It was just a complete bubble, right? The same thing happened with tulips in the Netherlands, right? These are just bubbles. People just give into their psychology, and there's a lot of like behavioral economics and behavioral finance that goes into these things. But since like about 1995, the price of a diamond has been pretty consistent. It's been like beating inflation by a bit, not recent inflation, but it hasn't been like dumping or like going down like lab grown diamonds have. So at least you can hold on to some of that value, and that's with anything where they can produce more of it, and like technology is always going to get better and it's just going to produce more, right? It's always going to go down in price, right? If you think about an iPhone, right? Even though the price doesn't go down, you get more every year. A Samsung, the same thing, right? You get a better camera, a better phone, but there's not really that much you can do with a diamond. So you kind of just have to get as nice of a diamond as you can, and then you just come down on price and maybe go for bigger diamonds. But again, it's because it's just being manufactured, right? It's not limited the same way a natural diamond is. Okay. Yeah, but regardless, I never ever recommend buying gemstones or diamond as an investment. It is not an investment. Most consumers don't really care for it as an investment either. They buy it as like a symbol of love, or like as a way to reward themselves. But the resale value should be a consideration because you're tying up a significant amount of capital, and if there's an emergency, or if there's a great business opportunity or something, you really need that cash, you should be able to have a good idea of what you're going to get out of it. And I'm telling you, if you buy a lab grown diamond, you will not get anything. You will be lucky if you get anything at all. This is where the major shortcomings of lab-grown diamonds really manifest, is on the resale value. While you can expect somewhere between 25% to 75% of what you paid for a natural diamond, the resale price on lab-grown diamonds are virtually zero. I'm not exaggerating. So, right, like for natural diamonds, as I discussed, if you do your homework, you do things the right way, you go to a wholesaler and they sell to you for as little margin as they're happy with, still making a profit because they rely on volume, right? And you get a really good price. You can easily do better than 75%, especially if take that initiative, and when you have to sell it, you go on like an auction website and put in that legwork and get the best price. If you take it to a pawn shop or something, you will get 25% if you're lucky. You really do have to do that work, find a buyer. It might take some time. That's the thing, right? People spend too much money on diamonds and stuff. And then when they really need the money right away, they get desperate that they have to go to a pawn shop where they can get the money fast, right? But uh, with a with a natural diamond at a pawn shop, you'll still get something. I'm really curious. Has anyone ever taken a lab-grown diamond to a pawn shop? What have they said? Please leave that in the comments below because I really want to hear about that. But again, so 25% to 75%. If you go to a fancy jeweler, um, if you go to like I have, seen some of the biggest names in jewelry, and they will have SI diamonds. They will list them as VS or VVS, and I'm like blown away. They never do GIA reports because that'll expose them. They always have their own internal grading, which is extremely generous, and then you're just paying for the name. You're paying for most of their money comes from selling little trinkets, and then they do their little lookbooks and everything, and huge ripoff. If you buy something like that, sometimes the name is enough, like the name of the setting is enough that you can actually do okay. But if you're going to one of those big jewelers and they don't have a name, then you'll be lucky to get even 20% of what you paid for the diamond itself. But again, if you go to the wholesaler, do things right, you can get 75%, even more. But lab-grown diamonds are a completely different story. So I did a comparison. I right now, the industry experts, like if you read articles and stuff, they're saying that lab-grown diamonds are selling for about 50%, 60%, 70% as much as natural diamonds. I don't believe that for a second. They were probably selling for that much when I first started talking about lab-grown diamonds. Let's actually look at what what comparable lab-grown and natural diamonds are commanding in the market today. So I picked a lab-grown diamond, and I found a 1.25 carat GVS2, pretty nice stone. That's a very that's what you would expect a nice engagement ring to have. Um, that's pretty typical of what the average American engagement ring would look like. Nice GVS2, round, brilliant, triple excellent, very nice stone. So I clicked the first result on Google. I just searched loose lab-grown diamonds, and I clicked on the first result. And I compared that price to the price on an auction website for a very similar stone, and then the price on a natural diamond, the biggest natural diamond website, and I compared the three. Now, it's really bugging me that this natural diamond website is also selling lab-grown diamonds. To me, it devalues their brand. They're also ripping you off on lab-grown diamonds because you can get them way cheaper. I don't know what they were thinking. And that's the reason I'm not using their name, is because I want to trash talk them, because I think it's just a stupid move. Honestly, their prices are pretty good. There are some wholesalers that you can get even cheaper on, but like, I mean, for like the amount of service, you can return if something's wrong. You have that like customer service side, and the prices are also pretty good. But then they're doing the lab grown stuff, and I've noticed their prices aren't as competitive as they used to be. But anyway, so let's get back to my actual lab grown versus natural discussion. So, um, so the 60 to 70% that they claim, I think you can get that if you have like a nice Fifth Avenue or like Rodeo Drive store, and like lab grown diamonds are the new thing. They're on like every magazine. You're hearing about them constantly. There are definitely some people who would fork out about 70% as much as a natural diamond because they just don't care that much. They have money to burn. They're just not making the most informed decision. They just want like a kind of new trendy thing. The store looks nice. They fall for it, right? And maybe, they do have a better process for making lab-grown diamonds. Maybe their lab-grown diamonds are superior to the ones I'm looking at here. But that's the thing. That's the thing with diamond grading, is it's extremely objective, right? The color, like GIA invented this system, and it is the same across the board, right? A degraded diamond in a GIA degraded diamond in Russia is the same as in Belgium, is the same in China, is the same in South Africa, it's the same in Australia, it's the same in the United States. It is the same because their system is so consistent. So on that objective basis, I can see that these new, it's mostly big established diamond companies that are getting into the lab grown market, and they're just ridiculously overpriced. And they're the ones commanding the 60 to 70%, which doesn't make any sense at all, as you'll see as I go on here. And again, so yeah, I'm sure like Fifth Avenue, fancy company, they can command that much. But let's see how our comparison goes here. So sorry, I've been rambling a bit. So 1.25 carat roughly diamonds, G VS2 round brilliance with triple excellent cut grades. And so we'll come to the natural diamond last. The actually we'll start with the natural diamond. So natural diamond is selling for 9,000 US dollars. All these prices will be in US dollars. And I confirmed with a few other large diamond selling diamond websites and that mostly specialize in loose diamonds, and that is the going rate. $9,000 is what you would expect to pay for that stone for a natural diamond. Now, I was shocked when I went on the popular, this is the first result on Google when I searched loose lab-grown diamonds. Maybe it's different in the US or somewhere else. I'm in Canada. This is what I got. Again, I don't want to say the company's names, but you can definitely find this stuff on Google. The lab-grown diamond, 1.25 carat, GVS2 as well, triple excellent, with an IGI certificate, $1,962. $1,962. So there are people telling us 70% to 80% of what a natural diamond goes for, 60%, and we are looking at 22%, right? So rather than getting 80% of what a natural diamond would sell for, lab-grown diamonds are selling for 80% less than what a natural diamond would sell for. That's insane. That's a huge difference. You're not even in the same stratosphere anymore. You're not even like comparing apples and apples anymore. It's just insane. And then it gets even better because I found a 1.25 carat GVS2, also with an IGI certificate, also triple excellent, for only $1,000 on an auction website, the most popular auction website. And they had the option to make an offer. So you may even be able to get it for less than that. So now imagine you pay $900 for a lab-grown diamond, and then the natural diamond is selling for $9,000. So you're paying 10% of what the natural diamond is commanding. That is mind-blowing, right? Now, to be fair, IGI does grade way more generously than GIA, and that is why I picked a 1.2 carat GIA certified diamond to compensate for that discrepancy, because carat weight is the least objective, right? Carat is always the same, down to the milligram. They have very accurate scales, every lab. So I decided to just go a bit lower on the carat weight to compensate for that variance. And I'm pretty confident this is still a fairly a fair comparison, because if anything, it should have been cheaper since it's smaller, but it's even more expensive than I expected relative to the price of a lab-grown diamond. Sorry, not that the natural diamond is overpriced. The lab-grown diamond is extremely cheap compared to what the industry and what these journalists and people who are really gung-ho for lab-grown diamonds have been telling us, right? So again, even with a smaller size, it still was like 10 times more expensive than the lab-grown diamond on that auction website. And again, so that's what you're competing against. You can buy a brand new certified lab-grown diamond that's like 90% cheaper, right? So if you're paying like $3,000 or $4,000 at one of these jewelry stores, you will never ever get even a fraction of that money back, especially on the resale side. And then basically, like, there's no sellers that can offer such huge discounts, right? Like sometimes you get deals on natural diamonds. They'll sell it like no reserve on an auction website, and you can get it for like 5-10% less. But I've never ever seen 80-90%. That's because you're not comparing the same thing anymore, right? It's a completely different comparison. It's an apples and oranges comparison at this point. So when I first started, right, when I made my first top 3 reasons why you should never buy a lab-grown diamond, at the time there's like probably a 30% or 40% discount. Now you can buy a 2 carat lab-grown diamond for less than just the setting, just like the ring setting, the little halo and the side, the small little melee of side diamonds. you can buy a 2-carat lab-grown diamond for less than just a natural diamond setting, which is just mind-blowing. It just shows you that this is not the same thing at all, right? So contrary to, but contrary to how I sound in this video, I don't have any particular hatred for lab-grown diamonds, right? Just like I don't have any particular hatred for lab-created sapphire or lab-created ruby. I'm not against it if you want to wear it. That's your right. But my issue is with the idea that lab-grown diamonds are equivalent to natural diamonds. They are not, and they never will be, right? One is created in the depths of the earth under precise geological conditions over millions of years and requires moving heaven and earth to bring it to the market. And one is a mass-produced synthetic that is baked in a fancy oven and it's ready to go into your Pandora charm in a matter of weeks. Just not the same thing, and they never will be. I know many of the comments on my last lab-grown diamond hate video were lab-grown diamond fanatics. They were very mad that I dared speak out against their cult of lab-grown diamonds. And they had invested significant sums into these scintillating synthetics, and it must hurt. But I warned you. I told you so.